Let's look at a couple of things. One, I think, taken everything out of this to make DNS not work. Our ping Ranger can't do it. Ping RKE room 111, which is the physical machine I'm on. I'm on a virtual server right now. Can't do it. Let's ping yahoo.com. Still can't do it. Can't even resolve the address. Can't ping Yahoo. We didn't even get an address return, which means that DNS isn't working. The DNS servers on the servers that you have, and this comes from the same CD, won't resolve outside addresses. Pretty cool, huh? So if I make you stay on your virtual machine, you can't get to Facebook or any of those other things. But that wasn't the reason. Whoever made it corrupted the files. I've tried putting in these own files and it still doesn't do anything. What could we do to make this thing work? Delete the root. I don't have a root. The root here is, here, let me turn this off and back on. View. View. Detail, turn off. It won't turn off. Oh. Because I've got it selected. View advanced. Okay. What don't you see anymore? The root. What you don't see is the cached folder, the cached lookups. In order to be able to see the cached lookups, of which there aren't any now because I deleted that too, view, advanced, and we get the cache. The root that you see here is in fact the root. These are from cached machines. These now have the edu, the com, doesn't have any com servers, yahoo.com. It tried to, it does have a CNAME. It's got a name server in there. The .NET servers, but we had a bunch of edu servers in here, the name servers. These are the root name servers for the edu top level domain. Well, how can we make this thing work? I want to do a couple of things. Forward. I want to go through forwarding a couple of different ways. What if we did I talked about conditional forwarder. Conditional forwarder only forwards for certain things. So we should be able to forward someplace else for roanoke.ecpivab.edu, right? 10.60.1.4 maybe? Because that's the server that you should have here. Let's try that one and see if it works. I'm always good for making a fool out of myself. Not going to work if we get the properties. Does it go into forwarders? Well, this thing listens on all IP addresses. The 192.168 addresses that you see on this server are the ones from the virtual network that VMware put in. So they're not really real. This is listening on 10.60.67 to actually 192.1. I'm sorry, that's for your networks. I'm on the wrong server. So we go here to forwarder. If I want to do a conditional forwarder, all other DNS domains, new for roanoke.ecpivab.edu is going to be the name of the zone. And then when I select it, I can pick 10.60.1.4 and add that for lookups for roanoke.ecpivab.edu. Let's see if we get anything on that one. Probably not, huh? Still not getting that one. You have any idea why? Why did it work? Why did it not work and now it does work? I flushed the DNS cache, but I didn't have anything resolved. Did I? Wasn't finding the address. One of the things that you'll find is, and the reason I flushed the DNS cache is because Windows does caches bad lookups. And what it did, it was look up, couldn't find it, said couldn't find it. I did it again, said, well, I couldn't find it before, I can't find it now. You may have to flush that DNS cache because it will cache that. It will cache the bad lookups.
Not through your server,
through your computer. Yeah, not through your server, through your computer. Okay? Now then, when I go into cache lookups, I still don't have anything, do I? One of the things that DNS won't do is automatically refresh. I just went to the action and refreshed, and now in my edu, if I go down here in my cache lookups, in the edu I have an ecpivab, Roanoke, And in Roanoke, I have an A record for the one that I was looking up, the room the 005 in RKE room 111. Should I be able to get to Yahoo now? I don't have a forwarder for all others. Let's see if I can get to Yahoo now. Ping yahoo.com, and I still have a bad lookup because, as James said, I don't have a forwarder for everything else. I only have a forwarder for the roanoke.ecpivab.edu domain. What if I wanted to be able to get out? Can I do that? This thing obviously isn't look it up, so now I need to do a forwarder for everything else. Actually, let's do one other thing first. I want to do the ping ranger.cargrew.edx.
Where's Cargrew come from?
Carrier group. Where does Ranger come from? USS Ranger, which is a member of a carrier group. Kind of makes sense in the DNS world, doesn't it? Where did EDX come from? I made that up because I don't like to use real names. I should have used local, but it was before I really understood why you used local. It's been there for a long time.
You can change it, right?
And not effectively, not unless I take Active Directory out and put Active Directory in, because it's an Active Directory integrated domain. It's an Active Directory domain, so I would have to change the Active Directory domain, which take it out, put it in. It's just not worth the effort.
You couldn't find it.
I couldn't get to Ranger. Why? It's got another bad DNS lookup. What I wanted to show here is let's do a zone transfer. It's going to be a forward lookup zone, new zone. It's going to be a secondary zone. If I create a primary zone, it would be one that I would put records in. Stub zone only has name servers, and then they'll have you do that. But I'm going to do a secondary zone because I want to do the zone transfer. Secondary zone next, and the zone name is going to be cargrew.edx because that's the name of the zone over there. It's the only one you can transfer. You have to have a real name to actually transfer it. Next, and then where am I getting it from? 10.60.66.253. You have to have the IP address of the DNS server that the zone's coming from. And I said I have already configured it to allow zone transfers. So I add that, next, finish, and I have a fully populated zone. Should I be able to ping Ranger now? No?
You don't have a lookup yet.
I don't?
Yeah, right there.
Right there it is. 10.60, it's got a whole bunch of them. This is the one actually is. Am I going to have the same issue? I had the bad lookup, right? Now let's see if I can get there. Okay, now I'm getting there. 10.60.66.253.
How did that record get in there?
Because I did the zone transfer. The zone transfer, the secondary zone, is a full copy of the primary zone. But if we go into it, let's try to change something. It's all grayed out. It's a secondary zone. It's a read-only copy of the information that's maintained on Ranger.
But it gets updated every time.
It gets updated.
Every time I first one.
When that one gets updated, it'll get sent the updates. Yes, the information will replicate to it. Upside downside, really cool. You've got it right there. It's listed locally, and you get that information. What happens if you have a glitch in the updating information? Then you can get bad records. They go through, and Microsoft has on their test, what should you use? And it's kind of like, well, it really doesn't matter. If you lose communication, you've lost it. Because they want you to, sometimes they want you to do, just do name server records. And the reason that you might want this one or might not want this one is the amount of data that's being transferred. Because when you do, and they're called incremental zone transfers, they only transfer the changes. When you transfer the information, you have to transfer all that information across the zone. So if you have a really slow zone, like a 12 baud or something like that, 300 baud, you may have some issues. They always go through the amount of traffic, and I don't know how much is actually there. So can I ping Yahoo still? Still can't get to Yahoo. Now I need to do a forwarder for everything else because this one obviously is not resolving. And if you had a DNS server in Active Directory that you didn't want to appear on the internet, we could use a forwarder to it. So I should be able to go into the server, into the properties of the server. It's still trying to do stuff, so I'm slowing it down a little bit, I think. And go into my forwarders, and now for all other domains, 10.60.1.4. We've used that one before, and I've got a limited number of DNS servers that I can use. What about now? Should I be able to ping Yahoo? It may have. These caches don't really last that long, but it does if it gets a bad lookup and you go quickly. Says, I already did that. I'm not going to do it again. So now I have a forwarder I should be able to get to, and I got a response at least from a Yahoo address. The configurations, the modifications that you have seen obviously up here are when you right-click on, you can configure the DNS server, launch the DNS lookup, clear cache. You can do all that stuff from the server, or go to the properties and wait for it to start up and configure some things. We have the interfaces that it is answering on, and it says listen on all IP addresses. Initially I said those are virtual. Those are not virtual NICs. Those are the NICs for the private IP addresses. So it's listening on the private IP addresses as well as the public IP address, listening for lookups. Forwarders we looked at. Advanced is where it's got the secure against DNS secure cache against pollution. You notice it's already selected. You can go in here and disable recursion, which if you can't see it, but it also says disables forwarders. So it will not do recursive lookups if you enable that. I don't know if there's any real need to do that. Root hints lists the IP address of all of these root hint servers. You notice they have really, really cool addresses like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, and then logging we talked about. You can turn on logging for what you want to do, incoming, outgoing, and you just go down and select the checkbox as to what you want to see in the logs themselves. If you want to enable logging, and notice that logging by default is turned off. Event logging, all events, no events. This goes into the logs. Monitoring, if we want to check it now, we can test it for a simple recursive lookup. A simple query against this DNS server, and then a recursive query. If we try the recursive query, it says that it passed both of them because we have a forwarder involved. You can do a little quick test here to see if it's actually getting out and resolving stuff and getting back in. If I wanted to clear the cache, I can just right-click on the cache and clear cache. Right-click, clear cache. If you have other DNS servers that you want to manage from this MMC, you just add them in there. We can add, if I want to add a zone, I've added a secondary zone here. What if I want to add a new zone called classroom.local? Create a new file. You notice that it didn't ask me when I created a new file, a new primary zone. It didn't ask me where it's coming from, what the listing of the DNS server is. Create a new file. We can do that. It's going to create a new one. Allow both secure and non-secure. Do not allow dynamic updates because I haven't said that it is an Active Directory integrated. Finish. And now I have my new zone here. Nothing in it, but I have a new zone. If I could register it somewhere, then I could put records in there and look up classroom.local. Or if I configured this IP address as the DNS server, it could then resolve any of the records that I put in classroom.local. I could manually create records in it where I couldn't in the secondary zone. Notice I get a much bigger list here. New host record. And let's say Henry.classroom.local is an IP address of 192.168.16.33. Doesn't really matter. And we can add the host record. Done. I now have a host record. I also have an NS, a name server record. The name server record for this zone is the server that it's on. And if I look at its properties, edit it, LDC doesn't have an IP address. We could put an IP address on it. The IP address is unknown. Tried to figure itself out and couldn't. We could go in and put that. If we wanted to put that in there. If we wanted to create, when we create a stub zone and you only want name server records, you can go in and create the name server records. They just refer you to another computer. Becomes a big referral service. So DNS really is generally a big referral service, isn't it? Hey Chris, what's Jermaine's phone number? You might or might not know. You might be able to look it up on your phone. But if you didn't know, you could ask DeQuan. DeQuan could look it up on his phone. Each of those phones would be zones that would have listings in them, phone numbers. So eventually somebody would know his address or refer you to. The easiest thing would be go to Jermaine and say, Jermaine, what's your phone number? So he would know that. He would be the authoritative server for that one. He'd be the one that could change it. Could tell you authoritative.
I don't know it.
But somebody else does.
You ask that.
Ask that DeQuan. DeQuan might say, hey, I don't know, ask Jermaine. So we would eventually get around to that. So that's a quick and dirty, I guess, overlook of how DNS works. There is at ranger.ecpi.net/how-to, probably 10 or 12 minute video on DNS, which goes through some other configurations if you want to take a look. How to get to the how-to videos are there. Upper left-hand corner, one of them goes to the virtual computers, the other one goes over to the how-to videos. There's one on configuring DHCP, and there is one on configuring DNS. Questions?